All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving into a real-life ecological mystery.
Ooh, a mystery. I love a good mystery.
This one stars, well, the unlikeliest of desert dwellers.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What kind of desert dweller are we talking about?
Squirrels.
Squirrels in the desert. Now that's unexpected.
Right. I mean, you think of all that sand and the sun, and a fluffy-tailed eastern fox squirrel just doesn't seem to fit the picture, does it?
It does not.
That's what makes this story so fascinating.
So where does this squirrel mystery begin?
Well, our source is this 2017 research article from the journal Mammalia.
Mammalia sounds pretty dry.
Yeah, it does. It's actually anything but, though. It really reads like a scientific detective story.
Okay, I'm listening.
Picture this. The year is 2011. We're in the heart of the Sonoran Desert. A researcher finds a roadkill.
Happens all the time in the desert, I imagine.
Right. But this roadkill, this was a real head-scratcher.
How so?
He was an eastern fox squirrel.
You mean like the ones I see back east, scampering around parks and college campuses?
Exactly. Sciurus niger for your scientific types.
Fancy. But wait, what's an eastern fox squirrel doing hundreds of miles away from its natural habitat?
That's what everyone was wondering. It was the first ever recorded sighting of this species in Arizona. Sent the scientific community into a bit of a tizzy.
I bet. So what did they do?
Well, they had to figure out how these creatures, known for their love of forests and woodlands.
Yeah, trees, acorns, all that good stuff.
Right. How did they end up in this drastically different environment?
What did they find?
Well, that's where things get really cool. They turned to the residents of Yuma, Arizona for answers.
Oh, I love that. Getting the local perspective, the boots on the ground knowledge.
Yeah, it's the power of citizen science. So they put out a call for information in the local newspaper and online, asking folks to share any squirrel sightings, any stories, any rumors they might have.
Smart move. Tap into that local wisdom.
And you wouldn't believe it. The response was incredible. A flood of memories, anecdotes, even a few tall tales started emerging.
I bet there were some good ones.
Oh yeah, there were. But it helped to paint this fascinating picture of the squirrel's history in the area.
Interesting. So what did they learn? How long have these squirrels been around Yuma?
Well, some of the earliest sightings went all the way back to the 1960s, maybe even earlier.
Wow, the 60s. That's much further back than I would have guessed.
And most of these early sightings were clustered around a neighborhood in Yuma called Pecan Grove.
Pecan Grove. Interesting.
And here's where the plot thickens. Some residents claim they witnessed people intentionally releasing squirrels in Pecan Grove.
Really? People brought these squirrels to the desert on purpose?
It seems so. Imagine that, right? Deciding to bring a little bit of home with you to the desert in the form of squirrels.
Huh. That's quite a story. And I bet those pecan trees played a part in their survival, too.
Absolutely. You find yourself in a scorching desert, you stumble upon an all-you-can-eat pecan buffet. I think any squirrel would think they'd hit the jackpot.
A true desert oasis. Those squirrels must have been thrilled.
Right. But those pecan trees, they weren't just a nostalgic touch for the humans. They seem to have been a key factor in the squirrel's survival. And speaking of survival, these squirrels, they didn't just survive in Pecan Grove, they thrived.
Oh, wow. Really? They made themselves at home.
Absolutely. Their population just exploded. And then they started expanding outward.
Oh, where did they go?
Well, they started colonizing new areas throughout Yuma, and they even made it into the neighboring town of Somerton.
Somerton. Wow, that's like, what, 15 kilometers away?
Yeah, something like that.
It's
impressive, right? They really made the best of the situation.
They did. You know, there's actually a name for that. Synanthropic. It describes species that have adapted to live alongside humans. They take advantage of the resources we provide, whether intentionally or not.
Synanthropic. I love it. I'm adding that to my vocabulary list.
It's a handy one. So basically, these squirrels, they cleverly utilize those human-introduced pecan trees and found shelter in our urban environments. They went from a small introduced population to a thriving community. Pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It really is. And it all started with a simple roadkill discovery.
Fascinating. So we've got these adaptable squirrels happily munching on pecans and building their little squirrel empire in the desert. But what about the rest of the ecosystem? How are they fitting in with the desert's native plants and animals?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And that's where our deep dive continues. All right, so we're back on the trail of those desert squirrels. We've uncovered their surprising arrival in the Sonoran Desert. We've seen how well they've adapted to this unlikely habitat. But now we need to answer the big question, don't we?
Yeah.
What kind of impact
are they
is having on the desert ecosystem?
Yeah. I mean, we can't just assume that they're just out there happily munching pecans and minding their own business, can we? No, absolutely not. You're right to be thinking about those potential ripple effects.
Right.
Because the Sonoran Desert, with that delicate balance, it's been honed over millennia. It really presents a particularly intriguing stage for this whole ecological drama.
It does, and it's a drama we don't know the ending to yet, right?
That's right. Because to be honest, the research paper, it focuses mainly on documenting the squirrel's presence and piecing together their history in Yuma.
Right.
It doesn't actually delve too deeply into the ecological implications.
Okay, so a bit of a cliffhanger then.
Exactly. But that's often the case with scientific research.
Yeah.
It's a process of discovery. Sometimes, it raises more questions than it answers.
Right.
But that's part of what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
It fuels further investigation.
Yeah.
And it forces us to grapple with all the complexities of the natural world.
Absolutely. So while the paper doesn't give us all the answers, it does offer some clues.
Right.
Some potential avenues for further investigation.
Yeah.
Like, for example, remember those pecan trees?
Oh, yes, the pecan buffet.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how a human-introduced species can play such a pivotal role in the survival of another species.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, those pecan trees, are they a valuable food source for other native desert creatures?
Yeah, absolutely. For certain birds, rodents.
Yeah, are they being outcompeted by the squirrels?
That's a crucial point.
Right.
Are the squirrels altering the availability of this really critical food source for those creatures that have evolved to depend on it?
Exactly.
This is something that ecologists would want to explore in more detail to understand the true impact of the squirrel's presence.
Okay, so the pecans are one piece of the puzzle, but what about the rest of their diet?
That's right. What else are these squirrels munching on in this desert landscape?
Are they eating native plants?
Are they incorporating native plants into their diet? And if they are they consuming them at a rate that could potentially impact the desert vegetation?
And it's not just about plants, right?
Right. These squirrels are omnivores.
Yeah.
Which means
they'll eat just about anything.
Exactly.
So are they raiding bird nests? Are they gobbling up insects? Those insects that are such essential parts of the desert food web?
Absolutely. We need to know more about their foraging habits to fully assess their impact on the ecosystem.
But I guess that brings up an interesting point, though, right? Because we often think of introduced species as having negative impacts on ecosystems.
Yeah, disrupting the natural order, right.
Right.
But, it's not always so straightforward.
Right.
In some cases, introduced species can actually increase biodiversity.
Really?
Yeah, it's possible, creating new ecological niches and even fostering these unexpected relationships.
Hold on. Are you saying that these squirrels could actually be good for the desert?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But it's possible. It's all about nuance and understanding that complex interplay of factors. So, for instance, those squirrels, they could be playing a role in seed dispersal.
Really?
Yeah. As they scamper about gathering and burying nuts and seeds, they might be inadvertently helping to spread native plant species.
Huh. So they could actually be helping the native plants thrive.
Exactly. And they could even be creating new microhabitats that benefit other organisms.
Wow, that's a completely different perspective.
Right.
It's a good reminder that we shouldn't jump to conclusions.
Absolutely.
Things are rarely black and white when it comes to ecology.
You've got it.
So it sounds like there's a lot more to learn about these squirrels and their impact on the desert.
Yeah, absolutely. The story of the Sonoran Desert squirrels is still unfolding. And, future studies might reveal even more surprising twists and turns.
I love it.
Yeah.
This seemingly simple squirrel tale has turned into a deep dive into the complexities of ecological interactions.
Exactly.
It's like a real-life soap opera.
It is.
With all the drama and intrigue playing out right in our own backyards.
Right in our own backyards.
But before we get lost in the weeds, so to speak, let's zoom out a bit and consider the bigger picture here.
You mean connect this specific case to some broader themes and takeaways. I think that's a great idea.
What can we learn from these desert-dwelling squirrels that goes beyond the boundaries of the Sonoran Desert? What did their story tell us about our own relationship with the natural world and the choices that we make that shape it?
That's a great question.
And it's a question we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've followed this incredible journey of these squirrels. From their unexpected arrival in the Sonoran Desert to their amazing adaptation skills.
Right.
And we've pondered, their impact on this delicate ecosystem.
Yeah.
But now I think it's time to kind of zoom out a bit.
Okay.
And think about what broader lessons we can learn from this quirky tale.
I mean, it really is remarkable, isn't it, how this seemingly isolated story connects to so many bigger issues.
It does.
Biodiversity, adaptation, human impact on the environment, the role of citizen science. It's all there.
It's all woven together.
Yeah.
And I think for me, one of the big takeaways is just how dynamic and interconnected the natural world really is.
Yeah.
We often think of ecosystems as these static things.
Right.
But the squirrel's story shows us that they're constantly in flux.
Absolutely.
Constantly responding to change.
Yeah. Species are always on the move,
Yeah.
expanding their ranges, adapting to new conditions,
Right.
interacting with other species in unexpected ways. It's like this giant, ever-changing ecological puzzle.
It is. And sometimes those puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
they end up in places we wouldn't expect.
Right. Like eastern fox squirrel.
Yeah, and the Sonoran Desert.
Exactly.
Like you said, it makes you realize that our understanding of where certain animals belong, it's pretty limited. So that raises a really important question, doesn't it? For us as humans, I mean, how do we navigate this ever-changing ecological landscape?
It's a big question.
It is.
Yeah.
How do we make decisions that promote, well, both human well-being
Right.
and the health of the ecosystems we depend on?
Yeah, that's a tough one. But I think, the squirrels, they offer some food for thought.
I think so, too.
That their story highlights the importance of thinking about the potential consequences of our actions.
Right.
Whether it's introducing new species, altering habitats,
Right.
or even just changing our consumption patterns.
Right, because like we were talking about with the pecan trees.
Exactly. Introducing a new species, even with good intentions, can have a ripple effect throughout an ecosystem,
Right?
creating this cascade of consequences
Yeah.
that are difficult to predict.
Because we're all interconnected, aren't we?
We are.
What we do in one place, it can have impacts far beyond our immediate surroundings.
Absolutely. And those impacts, sometimes they might not become apparent for years.
Or even decades.
Exactly.
But, that brings us back to citizen science. I mean, the researchers in this study, they relied heavily on the observations and knowledge of those local residents to piece together that squirrel puzzle.
Absolutely. It highlights how valuable it is to engage communities in scientific research, not just as data collectors, but as partners in understanding and addressing those complex ecological challenges.
Because we can learn so much from each other, can't we?
Absolutely. Scientists with their expertise and local communities with their intimate knowledge of the environment. Combining those perspectives can lead to some really groundbreaking discoveries.
So it's really an invitation to all of us, isn't it? To pay attention, to be curious, to ask questions, and to share what we see.
Exactly. You never know. You might just stumble upon the next ecological mystery waiting to be unraveled.
So keep your eyes peeled, everybody.
Yeah. Keep your minds open.
That next intriguing ecological puzzle might be just around the corner.
It might be.
And that's it for our deep dive this week. It's been a real adventure uncovering this curious case of the desert-dwelling squirrels.
It really has. And it reminds us that the natural world is full of surprises, constantly evolving, always revealing something new.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.